Hey guys. This is part 9 of What If Naruto Revived the Uzumaki Clan and was a seal master. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 33. The situation was hardly what he would have preferred, but Naruto was present, ready and prepared to fire on all cylinders. A part of him could not contain the excitement for this battle. He was basically tasked with moving a mountain, and he had many ideas on how to go about it, but there was no proof if any of it was going to work. Yet he could not run. He could not turn away. The future of the Empire laid at risk with Madara's existence. Perhaps if he got caught in the genjutsu, he would be at peace, thinking all is well. The genjutsu made all dreams come true. Given its power, you could never tell it was all just a dream. It was pathetic just how the mind could be fooled. The area was just lifeless. There was not a single tree. It was not hot, but the sun was out and glaring down. It had burnt all clouds away to avoid anything obstructing its view of what would become a battlefield. Large boulders stood tall in the thousands, creating small patches of shade. Naruto was sitting within one of the shadows, his back leaning against the boulder, eyes closed as he tried to calm his shaking body from exploding with the abundant energy it carried. He knew the battle brewing this day was a battle he could lose. He could release any jutsu and his opponent would take it and still stand. With the battles he has fought before, he could have accidentally killed some opponents by releasing jutsu that were too destructive. But the opponent of the day was just another monster, a relic from the past. I have never come across a shinobi who could, or rather would, completely hide his presence, Madara said, standing atop of the boulder Naruto leaned against. Naruto didn't open his eyes as he responded. It is the result of a pitiful dream of a shinobi to stop existing in a world where everyone hates him. Being a Jinchuriki, hosting the very same bija that killed many people, you become the target of contempt and people just wish you would disappear. And you made the dream come true by learning to erase your existence, Madara said, looking around. This was going to be a good place to battle. It certainly had the perfect ingredients. Yes, but it was not simply for them, but for my sanity. There is a little much one is willing to take before you reach a boiling point, Naruto explained lightly. I must say, even Hashirama would be disappointed with what the Hidden Leaf and other villages have become. Naruto was a former shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. The very village that he had founded with Hashirama to stop the feuds between the Uchiha, the Senju, and ultimately all shinobi clans. He had warned the Uchiha, and now they had become extinct. None of them would experience the perfect world he was going to create. They were dead. And he had warned them that such would happen if they stayed in the Hidden Leaf. Jinchuriki are forced to live such painful lives because of hatred. But I still wonder why even at the prime of such events, you fought Obito, even when you knew what he wanted to accomplish. It could have made your dreams come true, Madara mused, looking down at Naruto. Naruto shrugged. I like the sense of pain. A world where everything is perfect is just wrong. I'm irrational, and I don't believe that humans can possibly live without confrontations. According to Obito, you hate the notion of winners and losers, but I don't hate it. That is part of life, that is why we have right and wrong. Winning is not wrong, and so is losing. But being vengeful and hateful because you lost is wrong. The same can be said about winners who gloat in their victory. The important thing is to stay humble. But humans are complex creatures. Pride, lust, emotions, we can easily forget about humility. We easily cast aside humility in favor of other emotions that make us fight against the other. We are prone to violence. Perhaps things have always been that way. I didn't need genjutsu to make my dream come true. You see, my dream has already come true. What is left is merely sustaining it, and that is perfect. A life where you cannot feel pain is not life. Madara had not come here to try to convince Naruto to join him, or anything else. But if there had been a little hope, it was now gone. He knew the only thing left was to fight the blonde to the death. Well, at least on Naruto's side. There are different kinds of people in this world. You fall into the category of people who have no regard for anyone and don't care about people, but only care about them when it is convenient, Madara stated calmly. Naruto just shrugged carelessly and slowly stooped up before jumping away from the boulder to give himself some room. Madara darted tower. He was going to amuse himself before getting the locations of both the Sanbai and the Two Tails from the blonde. He needed those two before he could even begin to seal the other bijou he had collected. But for now, he could as well enjoy himself with a shinobi who has proved himself to be capable, much more capable than anyone else in this generation. Naruto didn't wait for Madara to get to him, he too darted toward the infamous Uchiha. The two collided in midair, elbows clashing for raw physical dominance. They landed, crushing the ground under the immense power being released. "Oh!" Madara grinned. "Your physical strength is impressive." "Nothing yet," Naruto responded, pushing Madara away with Sage Mode. He then held out his right hand, pointing his index finger towards Madara's throat. The Uchiha saw the movement with his Sharingan and twisted anti-clockwise, while lifting up his right leg. Naruto released a wind blade that would have pierced through the Uchiha's throat, but Madara was already twisting when the jutsu spread out. Madara returned with a high kick, aimed at Naruto's left shoulder. The blonde jumped back to avoid the high kick. The second he touched the ground, Madara was already upon him, twisting in midair just above him. A right foot cleaved through the air, traveling at tremendous speed towards his forehead. Naruto held out both his hands, crossing them as he attempted to block the kick. The kick connected with his defense. The raw strength behind it forced him to skid backwards slightly. When he stopped, Madara crash-landed in front of him, thrusting his knee towards his gut. Naruto reacted to this by driving his left fist towards the knee. There was a slight shockwave when his punch connected with the knee. "Wind blade!" Madara saw the index finger pointed towards his chest. He did a 90-degree twist, in a flash, giving Naruto his back, while simultaneously hurling his right fist back at Naruto's face. Naruto caught the arm, holding it tightly before pulling the Uchiha. He spun around twice, tossing the Uchiha into the air. Madara was quick to regain his balance as he flipped several times and faced the blonde, while still being carried by the momentum. He held a single-hand seal, seeing that Naruto was rushing toward him. "Fire style, fire dragon's breath!" He released an intense stream of flames from his mouth while still in midair. The flames poured out in a heap, rushing towards the incoming target. He could only blink when the blonde snapped his fingers and the flames just dispersed into thin air. His Sharingan spun overtime when he saw something. Within a second, he was right in front of Naruto, and then thrust a powerful punch on the blonde's gut, sending him crashing down. Boom! Naruto crashed on the ground with his back but quickly stood up to avoid being hastily attacked while he laid down. There was no attack coming from the Uchiha. Madara was standing atop of a boulder, staring down at him. "To completely dispel the oxygen in my flames, you are rather skilled in manipulating wind. To be able to manipulate your chakra to release that burst of chakra, it is impressive. And you have managed to do it without the help of a bloodline." Naruto stood up and looked up at the Uchiha. "Well, practice makes things perfect." Though not completely perfect in this regard. Jiraiya had warned him about being left exposed every time he used that ability. But it was a handy jutsu and not everyone was that fast. "Speaking of practice, since you seem to be moving well, you do well for me to test my jutsu. I didn't get much chance to try out many Mokuton jutsu in my last days," Madara said, while doing hand seals. "It is rather unpleasant being used as a test subject." Naruto grinned. "But oh well, if you are going to test your jutsu, I can do so as well. There are some jutsu I have not used in front of an opponent." "Then there is no reason to complain," Madara said as he held both his hands. "Mokuton, Deep Forest Emergence." Naruto felt the ground tremble as he sensed massive chakra from below the ground. A deep forest began to emerge from the ground, bursting up wildly, moving towards him. It was indeed the emergence of a deep forest. If he did not move, he would only get struck. The forest was dense and the trees were thick. Naruto sensed a tremendous amount of life force from within the forest. He thought about it for a moment, wondering if he should use a wind jutsu or katan. But seeing as he needed a distraction, he decided to go with katan. "Katan, Gokumes Shitsu!" He released a large stream of flames from his mouth. The intense flames rushed out, moving into the forest. When they were within it, they exploded into a huge column of intense flames that started burning the forest. Madara was on alert when Naruto appeared behind him, holding out a sword. The blonde didn't get closer to him, but rather swung his sword in a downward motion. The Sharingan caught the sight of a wind blade extending to an incredible length, moving towards him. He quickly jumped, flashing to the side to avoid the strike. His eyes narrowed when the sword cut through the boulder, separating it in half. "Aren't you taking this a little easy?" Naruto whispered, after suddenly appearing behind Madara while the Uchiha was still in midair. When Madara spun around to face the blonde, a brutal punch slammed his chest. Madara felt the air escape him for a moment, as he coughed up, flying backwards. He crashed to the ground on one knee, and massaged his chest for a moment before standing as saw Naruto twisting in the air, his right hand held out while a massive shuriken of chakra he held screeched loudly. It was an immense power the blonde was holding. What would he do with it? The answer came when the blonde hurled the jutsu towards him, and it cut through the air in a flash. As he twisted around to face the jutsu, Madara activated the Rinnegan and held out both his hands. When the jutsu reached him, he started absorbing it. It was completely absorbed, leaving nothing of its existence but the huge amount of energy he felt within. Rinnegan, huh? Naruto looked up for a moment before he held up his right hand. Wind blade. He lazily waved his right hand towards Madara. It was barely visible, but Madara saw it through the visual prowess of the Rinnegan. The invisible wind blade stretched from Naruto, almost in the blink of an eye, and it was already upon him. It had moved so fast that he only had the time to hold out his right hand to try to absorb it. But he was slightly surprised, although it didn't show on his face, when he failed to absorb it. He shifted his body slightly and watched as the blade grazed his right shoulder. It had managed to damage his shoulder plate, despite only touching it ever so slightly. There was no time to dwell on the strength of the jutsu Naruto had just used. The blonde crash-landed in front of him. The ground shattered under the weight of the power he carried. Madara could now completely feel the presence of the Emperor. He figured it almost impossible to keep at it while battling. A portion of his Susanoo materialized as Naruto drove a right fist toward his chest. Madara felt a shock when the punch collided with his Susanoo. It didn't break through, but still managed to have him sliding backwards slightly. The blonde didn't stop there. He threw a left punch, slamming straight into the ribs of his jutsu. Before he threw a third punch, Naruto took a single step forward, channeling chakra through his muscles before striking. It had been done so quickly that it would not be seen to the naked eye. The punch blasted through the ribcage of the Susanoo, forcing Madara to jump away. Naruto didn't want to give the Uchiha a moment to rest. Shinra Tensei. Naruto heard those words upon arriving just inches from Madara. The jutsu slammed into him with great force, sending him flying away from the Uchiha. Naruto cursed slightly as he flipped several times before landing on one knee. That jutsu you used earlier, it was pure wind, wasn't it? Madara asked, while slowly moving towards his blonde opponent. Indeed, Naruto said. The Rinnegan gives you the ability to absorb chakra, so if I throw any chakra-based jutsu while you are expecting it, you'll only absorb it, and thus I decided to throw something that is pure. You're able to control wind to that level even without a dijitsu? That is impressive, Madara complimented the blonde. I don't think I have also come across a shinobi who has been able to achieve such a feat. I was a little disappointed since I did not see Sasuke. He is the last of my clan and has the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. I was hoping that perhaps the two of you would challenge me. Naruto smiled. This was his usual attitude when facing opponents he saw as weak. One was never enough to even entertain him. And here he was, at the receiving end of this justice from the infamous Uchiha. He laughed after a few moments. I must admit, my pride as emperor has been wounded a little by those words. Perhaps I should go crazy a little. My respect of your strength keeps me restrained, the blonde said as he stood up. You should have done so earlier, but do it now if you can, Madara said before vanishing from sight. Naruto twisted around as he sensed the Uchiha. The moment he did so, a brutal force slammed into his chest. He felt sharp pain run through him, oxygen escaping his lungs for a second before the force sent him flying like a bullet. While still airborne, he was pummeled to the ground by another invisible force. Boom! Naruto was sent crashing to the ground. A large crater formed where he crashed. The Emperor was quick to get up, and had already summoned his wind sword. He held it with both hands and twisted from the crater. Emperor's rotating cutter! An invisible wind blade extended from his blade. Its length increased into a distance of more than 3 kilometers, and as Naruto twisted around, it cut everything it touched in half. When Naruto stopped, he released his sword and put it away before searching for his opponent. The Uchiha was standing some distance away from him. Armor plating around his waist had been cut, along with his clothing a bit. It was a clean cut. You replace yourself with those things, Naruto said of the shadow that had hit him. There hasn't been anything that I have not been able to cut through with that ability. I see you'd also have been bisected. It would have made for a great thing to see, but a disappointing end to you. Madara only laughed. This was what he was talking about. He needed the blonde to be able to use such to be able to make this exciting. If you were fighting against the 5 Kages, who would win? Madara asked Naruto. Naruto didn't need to think about it. He had already examined the scenario a couple of times. The outcome remained the same unless by some miserable chance he was outwitted, or something unexpected occurred and someone decided to interfere. Do you need to ask? Maybe not. I will create 5 clones with the kind of power each of the current Kage wields, according to the info Black Zetsu brought to my attention. If you win against them, then you will have earned my respect. The Uchiha jumped onto a boulder to stand at a fair distance where he could observe Naruto dancing with his clones. Naruto was silent for a couple of moments before laughing. It was a bit of a mad laugh. After a couple of moments, he stopped and stared into the sky. I shall dance to your tune, but only to heal my wounded pride. Madara created the 5 clones before responding. It isn't like you would have had any other option but to fight them anyway. Naruto smiled. Indeed. In this scenario, I cannot walk away as I did the last time around when I saw your clone. I now have to fight because unless my body cannot move or I face certain defeat, I cannot leave this battlefield. You're suggesting that you'd flee from this battle if you were losing. Not flee, but make a tactical retreat. As long as I am alive, your dream cannot come true. You can destroy the sound or Yuzu, but if I am alive, everything can be rebuilt. Of course, as long as I am able to defeat you, then I can use the power of the Rinnegan to revive my fellow Uzumaki. Madara folded his hands across his chest, staring at the blonde blankly. Defeat them then. Sage mode was still active, and it would be active for as long as there was a bit of life within this environment. There was little damage to his chakra reserves. He could afford to let loose on these clones. They were clones, so he didn't have to worry about anything. He could do whatever he wanted. He could even use this as a practice run for when the real Madara does decide to take him seriously. Naruto did a couple of hand seals before slamming both hands to the ground. Earth style, emerging splinters. He poured large amounts of chakra into the ground. Within seconds, the ground started to shake, and then hundreds of large, thin earth splinters started to sprout from the ground. This caused the 5 clones to jump around to avoid getting hit by the jutsu. When the hundreds of splinters had formed, the battleground had turned into a maze where Naruto's form was hidden. Even he could now no longer see the clones who were hidden within the bundles of rocks. It would have looked nice if there were hundreds of shinobi standing before me, Naruto commented, imagining shinobi screaming and crying while being mowed by the rocks. With Madara. From where he stood, Madara could see everything. The rocks only stood about 60 feet high. His Rinnegan could see chakra in all of those rocks that Naruto had formed. It was obvious that he was going to use those rocks for some sort of attack. Well, as long as it was clones, there was no need to be overly cautious and move away from here. He was also curious about what the blonde was going to do to even consider directing his clones to move out of the area. What are you planning? Back with Naruto. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he sensed a sharp increase of chakra. The rocks behind him burst as they were being cut by a dark blue chakra sword of a Susanoo. The blade moved towards his back, quickly forcing Naruto to jump up to avoid being hit by the sword. While jumping up, Naruto felt a huge spike of chakra from his left. His eyes moved there, and he saw another clone using a complete version of the Susanoo with 4 hands. The movement was far quicker than what Naruto expected as the complete Susanoo towered up before swinging a blade with its right hand. Naruto could only fold both hands, reinforcing it with wind chakra to try to block the power. Boom! A powerful shockwave tore through some of the rocks below Naruto when the blade connected with him. The force of the strike sent him flying away like a bullet. Naruto cursed silently when he crashed through a large boulder, bursting through it before hitting another one. He flipped several times before landing on the ground. Without even resting, he took off in a blur. He flashed atop one of the earth splinters he'd formed, surveying the area. Only 2 clones were using a complete Susanoo and the other 3 were hidden. But he could still detect their location. They were hiding by the rocks, waiting for something. The 2 stood out because the Susanoo towered above all boulders within the battlefield. Naruto clasped his hands. Mokuton, hidden massacre! Sharp wooden spikes burst from the rocks he'd formed. There were hundreds of them that burst out simultaneously into all directions from all sides of the rocks. 2 of the clones hiding by the rocks were unfortunate enough to get caught. On one of the clones, the spikes pierced through the neck from behind, 3 more through the chest and another on the left knee. The other one was caught around its waist while the third jumped up. The 2 that were caught crumbled down to death. There was no time to admire the work of his jutsu, or even imagine blood gushing out of shinobi who would have been caught by his jutsu. He was forced to jump into the air once more when a Susanoo flashed its blade. Naruto felt the wind hit him when the sword went past him from below. He didn't want to get one of those hits once more. While still airborne, another clone of Madara lunged below him, while activating a portion of its Susanoo with just the upper body and only right hand formed. Simultaneously, another flashed above him, encased in an imperfect Susanoo, flashing a blade in a downward strike. It was a punch from below, and a sword from above. There was no way he was going to escape without getting hurt if he got hit. The 2 attacks collided, creating a powerful shockwave in midair, but there was no sign of Naruto. The blonde landed a distance away, landing atop of a rock. Before he could even try to breathe, two large blue swords from the left and right crashed into him. There was a resounding boom that occurred when the swords collided. The rocks burst, turning into dust as debris flew into the air. When the debris cleared, Naruto was in a crater, breathing heavily, mouth leaking blood. He was on one knee. After a moment, he stood up and looked around. There were still 3 complete Susanoo towering around him. They were just huge humanoid things that were proving to be too tough for him. He slapped his hands together, activating his wind cloak. Along with Sage Mode, it had to give him enough destructive physical force to do what he wanted. Boom! One of the Susanoo stumbled back after being hit with a thunderous punch in the forehead by Naruto. The Emperor launched another punch once more, with all his might, and this time, when it connected, the Susanoo crashed before falling flat on its back. Naruto summoned his sword. He held it with both his hands and stretched it using wind before lunging down. He crash-landed on the Susanoo's head, his sword piercing through the crashed area before piercing through the clone. Seconds later, the Susanoo started dispersing. Naruto ducked under a flashing swing of a Susanoo's sword. The swing picked up the debris around him as it blew just above him. It cut through the rocks on its way after missing its target. Naruto straightened up before twisting around. A tornado started forming, raising high to even tower both the Susanoo. The tornado produced violent winds that pulled everything within its range into it. Even Madara was forced to jump away to avoid being sucked into the tornado. Without warning, the tornado started sweeping through the ground quickly towards the Susanoo in front of it. The Susanoo tried to swing its swords towards the tornado, but before it could do so, the violent winds were upon it. It became engulfed by the winds, and slowly started being rotated around in massive speeds. After a couple of moments, it was flung on its side, towards the other Susanoo. They collided in a heap before falling over to the ground. Naruto suddenly appeared above the 2 fallen opponents, while holding both his hands together. There was a pillar of chakra that surrounded him before electric currents started forming around his body. Kiss of the Thunder God. It all occurred in an instant. There was a loud explosion below him, encasing the opponents. There was a huge cloud of lightning that lingered for a couple of moments. It was so powerful that the atmosphere around became static. When everything died down, there was nothing that remained. A heavily breathing Naruto, paralyzed by the powerful jutsu he had released, crash-landed within the large crater his jutsu had created. A second later, there was a sickening sound of bones breaking. Naruto stopped breathing when he received 2 hits on the sides of both his rib cage. He felt immense pain shoot through his entire body, weakening him. His knees trembled, his hands felt dead for a moment as he coughed up large amounts of blood. Everything seemed to be in slow motion as his hands involuntarily wrapped around his chest, trying to contain whatever they felt was endangered. Unable to balance himself, Naruto started falling on his face. The attack had been sudden. He hadn't seen it. But it was still not Madara but rather his 2 shadows. Had it not been for Sage Mode, he would have been squashed. Manipulating chakra even at this stage took out everything in him. It left him drained, without energy to do anything but the sole focus on trying not to let the chance slip. Multiple chakra chains burst from the ground. The shadows tried jumping away, but there were 5 going after each and they moved incredibly fast. Both shadows were caught as Naruto hit the ground with his face. Your help, my prisoner. Kurama didn't waste time healing Naruto's severe injuries. His left lung had been punctured, but because of the quick healing method, he was not able to fully heal the blonde. The shadows tried to flee from Naruto, but the chains held firm. Sigh of the Thunder God. He managed to stammer out. Electric currents shot through the chakra chains, hitting the clones dead on. After a moment, Naruto retracted his chains and flipped around to lie on his back. I thought you'd give me a moment to compose myself. He called out to Madara, who he could sense walking up to him. If he entered QB mode, he would be fine. But he no longer needed this to drag any further. He didn't want this to go to the point where Madara activated his perfect Susanoo. There were times to grow curious, but this was not one of those times. This was starting to become dangerous for him. You succeeded in defeating the clones. Rather splendidly at that, Madara said with a shrug. Besides, I was a little embarrassed that you took less time than what I had thought you would. Naruto smiled. I guess that sounds like you, he said, working on healing himself as he could feel that Madara didn't intend on rushing toward him to inflict more damage. I was not aware that you used Mokuton. It seems your work was done without Hashirama's cells influencing your body, Madara stated. He knew Naruto was healing, but he didn't care for it. It wasn't like it was going to make any difference. I believed it would be useful in healing me. But that has proved to be not in an entirely satisfactory fashion. Either way, they do well to maintain my health. Naruto responded quietly. What drove you to consider this plan of yours? This was certainly not what you had in mind when you founded Konoha with Hashirama. I want to believe that when you brokered peace with the Senju, you believed that you could find your peace and escape that sickening life you had to live. Madara was silent for a couple of moments before speaking. You have healed enough. We don't need to continue to have this tea-dash. He immediately formed the ribcage part of his Susanoo. The Emperor flashed in front of him, and then slammed a right punch straight into the Susanoo. It didn't budge. Madara reacted by forming two bone hands from his Susanoo and attempted to slam a fist from above the blonde, but Naruto jumped away to avoid it. While airborne, Naruto cloaked himself in Kurama's chakra and once more vanished in a blur. It was all too quick for even the eyes of Madara to follow. The Uchiha found himself flying backwards along with his heavily cracked Susanoo. His eyes flashed above as he sensed something. Naruto flashed above him, holding a huge ball of chakra. He slammed the jutsu into him, sending him crash landing in a loud boom, creating a crater upon landing. The Susanoo was shattered by the impact and the jutsu, but Madara was unharmed. He dusted himself as he stood up. He found Naruto standing a short distance away. That was no doubt the power of the Kyuubi, his beloved pet. It had assisted him greatly in his battle against Hashirama. Would it assist Naruto in this battle? Madara thought not. He did a couple of hand seals and then held both his hands around his mouth. Cat dash. Before he could finish talking, Naruto was upon him. The blonde slammed a powerful punch forward with his left fist. And it shook him. He followed this with a Katon Rasengan, slamming it on his chest plate. The jutsu sent him flying backwards in a cloud of flames. Naruto was fast. Ridiculously fast. It reminded him of a certain jutsu that Tobirama once used in those old days. But this was extremely quick. At first sight, it was difficult to track down. But he was getting around it. He flipped several times before landing on one knee. He checked his chest plate. It was broken and his upper clothing was burned up a bit. He removed the plate along with the rest of his armor and stood while stretching his stiff muscles. Mini-tailed beast bomb! Naruto was above the Uchiha, dropping the small yet powerful jutsu towards his temple. Shinra Tensei. Boom! Madara released a powerful force that slammed into Naruto, sending him flying away. The force disrupted his jutsu, causing it to set off. Naruto flashed away from the explosion to avoid getting hurt. He landed down on one knee, breathing heavily. Naruto jumped into the air, looking around for his opponent. This was proving to be as difficult as he'd imagined. But he was honestly having a bit of fun. Madara was as strong as history had said, if perhaps not with a bit of an understatement. His thoughts were cut short when Madara suddenly appeared in front of him, while he was still floating in midair. He held up both his hands, folding them across his face when he sensed an incoming attack. Madara's flying right foot crashed into his hands, creating a loud boom, as he was sent crashing into the ground. Naruto crashed down on both feet, in a kneeling position, while looking up at the Uchiha, who was flying down, right foot stuck out with an attempt to stomp on him. Naruto did not move, he just placed his right hand on the ground and waited for the right moment. When Madara was certain to hit him, he channeled chakra into the ground and forced a large wooden spike to sprout from the ground. The spike shot out and pierced through Madara from behind, but the Uchiha suddenly turned into a solid wooden clone. Madara appeared behind Naruto, his right foot up in the air, cutting through the atmosphere as it sped toward the blonde's back. As Naruto tried to twist around while standing, he was not able to move fast enough as Madara's kick connected with his left shoulder. The force sent him crashing into the spike he'd created. He burst through it, before flipping twice and then landed on the ground with a complete halt. Seeing Madara dash toward him, Naruto closed his eyes and held out his right hand while holding a single hand seal with his left. He then suddenly swiped his right through the air. Wind tornado! Madara narrowed his eyes as he felt the air became thick. He was suddenly surrounded by rotating winds. He hid his face by folding his arms across it. The winds had enough strength to force him into an uncontrolled spin. The twist was quick and did not hurl him anywhere. When everything stopped, he was a little disoriented, failing to stand fully with his head spinning lightly. Wind punch! Enhanced with wind chakra, Naruto thrust a powerful drive straight on Madara's chest. There was a crunch sound when the punch connected with the man's chest. Madara spat out some blood before sent rocketing backward. His body crashed into a boulder, hard, shattering it under the force, but was able to land on both feet. He skidded backward slightly before coming to a halt. He wiped the blood off his mouth and stared at it before grinning madly. He laughed. "You are getting me excited," Madara said with a grin on his lips. "Blood, this is what it means to fight. It is a pity that it cannot be a battle to death since you are a precious Jinchuriki. Well, no matter, it doesn't matter. I can't help but enjoy this." Naruto breathed in for a moment and stared at Madara before speaking. "Well, I cannot deny that this is starting to become fun." But he wanted to talk a bit with the Uchiha about his plans and what led him to conclude that humans had no hope but only to be subjected to a cruel fate that robs them of freedom. The living world basically comes to an end as people start to live in their dreams, gaining nothing but illusions that they cannot break away from or even recognize. He looked up for a moment and then spoke. "Shinobi are truly something else. They kill, destroy, and rape. We are always taking from someone. Always making someone angry and hateful, simply because we want to achieve something. The moral compass is even twisted only to our narrow needs. We view the world only based on what we want to achieve and fault everyone who says we are wrong," Naruto said in a thoughtful tone. He then smiled. "Well, I am the same in that category. I have killed and earned enemies because I want to win. Everybody wants to win. Nobody is pleased with losing. It is the losers that suffer the most," Madara responded. "But because there are winners and losers, there can never be peace in this world. But with an infinite Tsukuyomi, everyone will have their dreams come true. Everyone will be happy. But it ends this world, a world where everything is perfect is not realistic. Even you cannot enjoy a world where everyone is completely fine and no one fights you. You have no regard for life or anything that is around you. Why would you wish to stop this? If you were within the Genjutsu, you would live the life that you were not able to live." Naruto smiled a bitter smile. "I must admit, my life is truly sad. My childhood has left me emotionally scarred that I cannot even try to bring out the emotions within me. But I do wonder when this will end. I cannot think that my life will end in misery. Maybe a part of me wishes to enjoy life. Maybe I just want to see my clan great again. But as I deny your dream, I ask myself, what for? If I don't reject your dream, I lose experience, my pain, my suffering and loneliness. I don't want to part with that. I want to be able to confront my past and deal with it. I want to live for the real future because I am realistic. I am not without hope. Perhaps I had been doing things the wrong way, but I am here because of the way I have done things. And I shall not see what I have built turn into dust only to be replaced by illusions. Besides, for your dream to come true, I must die. I cannot possibly die without seeing out my life, in such a miserable state. What do I say to the mother who gave her life so that I may live? What do I say to her? Her parting words were for my life to be happy, even with the challenges ahead." When the Sandaime had told him about his mother, Naruto had loved her even though he'd never met her. Even though he'd never spoken to her. His love for his clan had been by extension the love for his mother. "Talking won't change anything. As you seem to be unwilling to change," Madara said in a flat tone. "Well, I would not have allowed you to do anything before you dance for me." "I will indulge you," Naruto said before dashing toward the Uchiha. Madara saw the blonde coming and released his Susanoo, just the ribcage and skeletal hands. When the blonde neared him, he formed a fist with the skeletal hand and drove it towards the blonde. Naruto continued moving toward the punch before suddenly disappearing. He appeared behind Madara, holding his lightning sword. He lunged toward the Uchiha's back, stabbing the sword forward. The sword collided with the Susanoo and came to a complete stop, failing to pierce through, but it did leave a slight crack. Naruto was forced to jump into the air when Madara started to twist around. The Uchiha's Susanoo took a larger form, and while Naruto was within the air, it created a huge sword before flashing it. Naruto had Chain's form in front of him, before the sword collided with him. The large sword hit his defense but still sent him flying backwards in a heap. He was still able to land gracefully on the ground. "Well, this is going to be a little difficult, but I like the challenge," he said while cloaking himself in Kurama's chakra. He held out his right hand, gathering raw chakra. He created a small Bijuduma, and grabbed it before disappearing in a flash of yellow. Madara was surprised at the speed the blonde showed. He was still fast, but that fast was on another level. It had almost looked as if he had teleported. He was reminded of Tobirama's jutsu for a moment, but he did not dwell on it when he felt a huge shock on his Susanoo. His eyes widened slightly but with a bit of excitement when he saw the blonde in front of him. Naruto had flashed in front of Madara's large complete Susanoo. He landed a resounding punch on the Susanoo's chest, causing a huge shockwave to rock through the area. The Susanoo's chest cracked as it stumbled backwards, falling over. Naruto was not done. He released the chakra he held as a beam. The blast burst through the Susanoo, further causing it to fall over. Naruto jumped away, to create some distance. The blast spread toward Madara before engulfing him as the Susanoo hit the ground on its back. A huge explosion followed shortly, raising a huge column of debris into the air. The debris did not settle before Madara launched another attack. Huge stones covered in intense flames shot out of the debris, flying over to Naruto. He twisted around, engulfing himself in a huge tornado. The winds deflected up to 10 balls of flames to the sides before small explosions occurred as the flames hit the ground. When the tornado stopped, Naruto was in midair. Guh! Madara's shadow suddenly landed a brutal punch to his gut, causing him to spit liquids from his mouth as veins popped up around his neck. The pain shot through his body within seconds, making him tense. The blow sent him flying, and as he did, he was forced to bring both hands across his gut, trying to stop anything bad from happening. Bam! He was suddenly hit. Shit! He cursed silently. It looked like Madara was trying to kill him. He was forced to roll over to the side when he sensed something. The giant fist of a Susanoo crashed into where he had been standing, burying itself into the ground. When he sensed another, he held out both his hands, creating 4 more chakra hands. Boom! Another huge fist crashed into him, burying him into the ground. Madara was floating within his Susanoo. His entire upper clothing had been torn apart by the jutsu Naruto released. But there was no harm done. He watched as dust settled and came to see something wrong. Naruto was buried, but he had still managed to block his punch, and not just block it, but also hold onto it with his chakra hands. He raised an eyebrow as the bleeding blonde stood up, while holding onto his fist. He tried pulling back, but the blonde held firmly. It must be because he is using Senjutsu and the Kyuubi's power. But what was he going to do? His answer came when Naruto suddenly yanked him. It was ridiculously amazing. In all his years, no one had ever effortlessly lifted his complete Susanoo from the ground. He was most impressed and worried when the Susanoo flew into the air before being hurled to the side. Madara cancelled his Susanoo to better balance himself, but the second he did, an invisible wind blade pierced through his arm, leaving a wound and blood gushing out. Naruto flashed in front of the Uchiha while he was still in midair. He drove a right punch towards the Uchiha's temple, hitting him hard. The punch sent the Uchiha crashing to the ground. Naruto flashed to the ground. He is indeed a legendary shinobi, Naruto thought, forming a Rasengan. I didn't think he would dodge that at its speed. Madara slowly got up, smiling. He glanced at the blood on his right arm. He is indeed quite capable. This is the second time he is making me bleed. He trailed off when the blonde materialized in front of him once more. Madara held out his right hand and blasted the blonde away from him. But he was left to put on a look of surprise when a chain suddenly wrapped around his outstretched hand and then pulled him along with the blonde. He was forced to fold his hands in a defensive manner when another Naruto suddenly flashed between, twisting around with a raised right foot. The high kick collided with his hands, as the chain dispersed. The kick sent him down, but Madara still managed to land on both his feet, harmlessly. When Zetsu said you were strong, I didn't think you'd be this capable. I will take the compliment from you, Naruto said with a smile. But you are still just a brat, Madara said in a serious tone, hands folded across his chest. You seem to be capable of handling my complete Susanoo, but I wonder how you can handle the other one. Naruto knew that this would be much more difficult. He already received blows that would otherwise be fatal had he not been a Jinchuriki, but there was no lasting damage to the Uchiha. Sure, the 2 blows he landed would damage a normal shinobi, but he was dealing with the infamous Uchiha here. Such blows could be shook off. Where is Zetsu? I'd honestly be afraid he was close by, a moment of weakness and he would pounce, Naruto said in a serious tone. You need not concern yourself with that, Madara said. You are going to die anyway. Oh well, I can say since it matters not. I sent him to look after the Nibi when he found that it was not within the whirlpools but in an island close to the water country. It is my suspicion that the Sanbai could be around there as well. If so, then after here, I can go there and collect those too. You are moving a bit quickly. Things are already not going according to plan. Well, no matter, I have come back to life and will handle this quickly, Madara said, holding out his right hand. Those who have seen this have never lived to tell the tale. Naruto watched as Madara released a tremendous amount of chakra, rising high. Slowly, but surely, the perfect Susanoo formed in its all-majesty. Standing before it, he was nothing but an insect. Naruto was amazed. It was so much more than what he had expected. And to think that Hashirama had gone against this thing. He could not do it on his own. He needed the power of the Bijou within him to do something. It was pathetic. But still necessary. He had to use all he had to make his dreams come true. Madara grabbed one of his swords and wondered for a moment before slashing it across the blonde. Boom! The swing cut through all boulders standing, leveling everything to the ground. Naruto remained rooted to the ground, with a raised brow at the swing that just cut above his head. So it was true, the swing of a Susanoo could cut down a mountain. But then again, the full power of the Kyuubi was rumored to be able to level a mountain by just swinging its tails. He clapped his hands together and summoned Kurama's chakra. The dark orange nine-tailed chakra form of the bijou came to life. Just know that there is a time limit to this transformation. How much? I don't know, we still don't get along, so your link is a little forced. It might not last that long. Naruto frowned. And you failed to tell me this because? When have you ever been interested in hearing from me? You've always been about giving instructions and did not listen to what I had to say when it came to your use of my chakra. I honestly never trusted you, that is why I chose to go along with what I knew. It was safer that way. Naruto answered with a slight shake of his head. Well, no matter. I have a plan. It doesn't matter, things should move well, he said before letting out a huge roar. Come! Madara invited. With pleasure! Naruto shouted as he charged toward the perfect Susanoo. As he lunged forward, Madara took out his other sword, arming 2 hands, leaving 2 others attached. He swung the sword on his right, charging it toward him. He could feel the wind being brushed to the side by the swing. Naruto came to a halt, holding out both arms and then moved towards the sword. He moved quickly in allowing it to slip between his hands before slamming onto it with so much force that the ground he stood on shattered. The sword came to a complete halt after being caught. Before Naruto could even let loose of a breath of relief, Madara swung his other sword in a downward slash. All 9 tails became surrounded by chakra chains as he moved them above him. The sword hit the tails in a loud boom that forced him to hit the ground and 3 tails were cut off. After composing himself, Naruto pushed back, pushing both swords away. This left the Susanoo slightly off balance. Naruto lunged, before landing a right hook on the Susanoo's face. It stumbled back, as Naruto jumped into the air. Madara brought himself to balance and straightened up when Naruto started descending. He held a sword firmly and slashed it towards the blonde, the sword picking up dust as it moved from the ground, up toward the blonde. Before the sword could hit him, Naruto's form disappeared, returning to just being clothed in Kurama's chakra. He was able to dodge the sword because of this. Upon landing atop of the sword, he transformed back into Kurama once more before slamming a hard punch on the Susanoo's head. But before it hit the ground, one of its sword cut through Naruto's form, nearly having it. Naruto was forced to jump back. Upon landing on the ground, his form patched up quickly. While Madara rose, Naruto began to charge a Bijudama. By the time the Uchiha Susanoo was back on its feet, he had already completed charging a massive ball of chakra that floated above his head, almost as big as him. The jutsu tore through the ground, creating debris as it rushed toward Madara. The Uchiha took a stance, standing steadfast before swinging his sword toward the jutsu. His sword collided with the jutsu, and it pushed him backwards. He dropped one sword to the ground and held one with both hands and then deflected the jutsu away from him. Boom! A massive explosion shook the ground after the Bijudama exploded. Madara narrowed his eyes as Naruto was in front of him, standing on the nose of his Susanoo. Naruto threw out 4 kunai to the side, and did a couple of hand seals. Several marks formed before what appeared to be another Bijudama started to peer out from the space, right on his face. Boom! The explosion pummeled Naruto away while engulfing the Susanoo in a blaze of intense flames. Within the flames, a blue sword cut through. Naruto had his body surrounded by chakra chains before the massive sword swatted him a distance away. He coughed up blood before crashing a distance away from the flame-engulfed Madara. He crash-landed on the ground and quickly tried to stand up but then fell on one knee, breathing heavily. His ribs had been shattered. Right lung punctured. Breathing was hard. Kurama was working overtime to heal him. He was put on alert when something crash-landed in front of him, but before he could do anything, another shadow grabbed his right hand. The shadow that had landed in front of him chopped downwards while the other pulled. This resulted in his right hand being separated from his shoulder. Naruto did not make a sound. Even so, when blood gushed out of his shoulder, and the shadow kneed him before brutally headbutting him. He fell backwards before a heavily bruised Madara crash-landed on the side and then tried to stab him on his left shoulder with a chakra rod, but Naruto rolled to the side. Bastard brat! Madara hissed lightly. He was not angry. You planted a unique explosive tag that caused my own chakra to explode before the Bijudama was set off. Naruto smiled despite the pain. I thought it might work. he managed to say between the heavy breaths accompanied by massive blood leaks. But it seems to be the end of you. I could not set off the mark I put on your Susanoo without direct contact, Naruto said weakly. You are quickly healing yourself, Madara noticed. Madara took a step toward Naruto, but before his foot could touch the ground, something appeared in a flash of yellow just below him. His eyes narrowed down as he stabbed the chakra rod he held down towards the person. It was Minato who had appeared, but he was not alone. He had flashed along with Naori. The chakra rod pierced through his shoulder. Edo Tensei? Madara realized. While he stabbed Minato, Naori had released his chakra chains, wrapped around the Uchiha's leg. When Madara tried to move away, the chains held firm. He found himself shackled by the chakra chains. This is the unique ability that you Uzumaki possess. I hear these chains are strong enough to contain a bijou, even the Kyuubi, Madara said without concern. But how did you get below me? It could not have been pure speed. I did not even sense you until you appeared. Teleportation. My son marked you when you first fought. When he caught your foot earlier. Minato responded calmly as he got up with Naori still on the ground. Son? Madara did not dwell on this. His shadows had returned. It was something that was forced. This was your ace then, but I wonder if these chains will be able to hold onto the Susanoo. It is embarrassing that I have to bring it out again, but it cannot be helped. Chakra started to rise as the Susanoo began to form, but the chains still held him. Suddenly, the chakra dispersed. Madara blinked before frowning deeply. There was something very wrong. He lost the vision of the Rinnegan and could not use chakra. The chains were blocking his usage of chakra. This could not be the end, could it? No, he could not end this way. He could not end this way. Naruto was just a brat. This kind of ending could not be his undoing. He would not go in a similar way as Obito did. He struggled, but the chains just tightened. And two more pierced through his shoulders. No, the years of planning could not end just like this. Naruto was now holding his torn-off arm with his left. He was still sitting on the ground, smiling with amusement. I should not taunt you, but I can't help but be amused seeing the legendary Uchiha struggling so haplessly, he said with amusement. I'm going to cut off your head and take those eyes. Those eyes are the sole reason I chose to do away with the Kage and your fellow clansman, Sasuke, from interfering with the battle. It would have been impossible to claim the eyes without having to step on their throats. Madara laughed. What would Hashirama say about this? Naruto could not beat him. But he had been brought to this state by allies. Hashirama would probably lecture him about his lessons of never being able to do all things by himself. Surely, if he was not alone, he would have been able to navigate through this. But he could not because he was alone. What could Zetsu even do in this situation? Well, no matter, if Zetsu was still around, he would think of something. Madara closed his eyes. The battle had not been disappointing. Haku found Naruto sitting on his throne, his right arm missing. The Emperor had a complicated look on his face. Haku wondered what it was all about, but he didn't ask, at least not immediately. He wondered if the Emperor would say something because he seemed to be far away from this world. After a couple of moments, Haku finally said something. Is it over? There was no telling with Naruto. He could have fled from battle. He had never hidden the fact that he would run if he saw he was not going to win. It took a couple of seconds, but Naruto finally faced Haku. Yes. He fell silent for a minute. It is indeed over. We can continue with the great expansion of our influence. Well, you can continue with it. My role is now done, I can enjoy the comfort of my throne. You are not going to do anything? You are not as weak that you need me to hold your hand. Haku, you are also very powerful. Without Nagato, I depend on you to protect what I have built. He then paused, and smiled, a flat smile. Of course, given your attitude, I sometimes did think if you would not stab me in the back just because you think my ways are wrong. But I've learned to trust you. Perhaps it is safe to say that you are the only friend I have, the rest are subordinates, tools needed to make my dreams come true. I wish you not look at people that way, Haku said. But I am glad you consider me your friend. But what about your hand? I'll go to Karen for her to patch it up, if she can. If she cannot, Kabuto will do it. It does seem that I am becoming a little dependent on him a little too much, and I don't really like it, Naruto said in thought. But it is no matter. For now, leave me alone. I want to rest, and think about the future without wars and see if I belong to such a world and how I can navigate about it. Chapter 34. It had been 6 months since the Emperor fought Madara and won. Nobody had seen the battle, but the landscape had been changed as a result, and its tremors had been felt all over. The captured Jinchuriki were released and returned to their homes. It was no charity from the Empire. Not when it didn't need the power of the Bijou. Still, had they kept them, everyone would have been uncomfortable. Everyone. Konoha, Kumo, and especially Iwagakure. But Hayashi was not worried. At least not for Konoha. The Empire hadn't been bothering anyone. They'd been focused on building the train system and fostering close ties with feudal lords while the Kage were sidelined. They were grumbling. But there was nothing that could be done. They could not force the Emperor to talk to them. Hayashi glanced outside the window as the train stopped. He had ridden one from the Leaf to the capital. For a month now, they'd been running. It was a favored transport for civilians. Now they could travel without the fear of being attacked by bandits. The outside was crowded. People from all over were at the large train station. It was his first time being here. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen before. When he stepped out along with Hanabi, he realized this was another world. Some people had to come here to get trains to other nations where there was no direct route. You could easily get lost after stepping out of the train. Everyone seemed to mind their own business. Everyone appeared to be in a hurry. It was rush hour. He glanced at Hanabi to see her reaction. There was only a slightly stretched brow. But Hayashi knew she was overwhelmed. He looked around for signs. There were different gates, leading to different destinations. Hayashi saw 7 in total. This was slightly underground. He'd known this. A redhead man appeared in front of them unexpectedly. He smiled. Hayashi-sama, he said before glancing at Hanabi. You must be Hanabi-san. Hanabi nodded. The man didn't introduce himself. Hayashi thought it was rude, but he didn't say so. The man led them outside the train station. It was just as crowded as the station. People looked lively. The atmosphere was welcoming. It was different from Konoha. Unformed shinobi walked around, doing patrols. Some buildings stood tall, as if he was in Amegakure. The buildings around certainly reflected the capital's diversity. It was also amazing just how in less than a year, this place had become like this. It was not built as big as Konoha, but it was still crowded. And most people were civilians. Hayashi blinked his eyes. He stared at the man he recognized as Haku. He was the man he had been corresponding with in regards to his visit. He was the one who had been running around making rounds with daimyo. He was rumored to be very friendly with the Fire Lord. They were neighbors, in terms of borders anyway. Haku appeared to be the one who reigned supreme over the empire. Over the past months, it has not been the emperor but Haku. The emperor seemed to disappear into the shadows while he showed up. In battle, he was known for being the one to have fought and defeated Kakuzu. He was known to freeze an entire bandit camp that civilians had been rescued. There were some rumors, but perhaps some were just an exaggeration. Still, the man smiled kindly, but no doubt, he was powerful. Hayashi greeted the man with a small smile and Hanabi did the same. Welcome to the capital. Haku welcomed the two with a warm smile. I have anticipated your visit for a while now. They should have met months ago, but other commitments came first. And besides, Naruto had wanted to show the Kage that he didn't need them. You are the one who have been pushing back at attempts to meet, Hayashi said as they started walking along the streets. Your talks are not with me but His Majesty. He has not been seeing people. There have been internal matters that needed to be solved. Haku responded casually. Hayashi nodded. He was not going to ask what. As they walked, he realized Haku was much respected. People seemed to bow to him, and others acknowledged his presence. No one seemed afraid of him. Everyone seemed to love him. Would you like to see the city first or would you like to see His Majesty? The journey was comfortable. We can see the Emperor, Hayashi said. Haku nodded. He is not expecting to see you until tomorrow, but we will see if he permits it, he said with a smile. Should we not just see him tomorrow then? Hanabi suggested, not wanting to impose on the Emperor. The Leaf apparently needed this to work as it had no alliance with the Empire unlike with other villages. Haku shook his head. You don't have to worry about anything, he said reassuringly. The Emperor's place was as beautiful as it was rumored. There was a natural fragrance around it. Perhaps it was the colorful trees around. Or maybe it came from the water stream. Hanabi was a little nervous now. She had been on many diplomatic missions. But this was unlike anything before. She was going to deal with the Emperor. The most powerful man in this generation. Of course, if you were talking to Sasuke, he would dispute that. But there was no one who came close to the Emperor aside from the Uchiha. The throne room was intimidating. It was set out that way. You knew you walked into the ring of the Emperor. Power, wealth, it was all displayed. But the treasure was the man on the throne. When was the last time she saw him? Hanabi could not remember. But he looked different. His hair seemed to have been slightly cut that it no longer reached his shoulders. He wore a silver crown, a strangely shaped necklace. He covered himself with a dark cloak. There appeared to be slight bags around his eyes as if he was hardly sleeping. Immediately, Hanabi fell on her knees. It didn't matter that she was wearing ceremonial robes. She felt compelled to show respect before the emperor. Her father only bowed his head ever so slightly. When she glanced at the emperor, she realized he was staring back at her, amused by something. Perhaps it had been the speed in which she knelt down. The Hyuga clan is here to discuss what you started with Shikamaru, Your Majesty, Haku said. While there was a bit of seriousness in his voice, there was that casualness. Already? I thought we were not seeing them until next year. Haku shook his head. You have been avoiding people. It is time you stepped outside. And we need to conclude this or we won't move forward. Listening to the two, Hayashi couldn't help but realize that ever since the battle with Madara, the emperor has not made any public appearances. In fact, some people had even started rumors that he had been seriously injured in his battle with Madara, which was not hard to believe. Some had thought he was dead, which was why Haku was the one who was running the empire. The feudal lords had even said that Haku handled all things and anything he agreed with the ice user was final. The emperor only ratified alliances. Of course, with that, Hayashi had known the demise of the emperor was exaggerated. He blinked when he realized the emperor was now staring at him. Please enjoy seeing the city today and rest a bit. We will talk tomorrow around noon. Haku will entertain you for dinner. He started with please, but Hayashi knew was just being polite. Iwagakure. Kuratsuchi just shook her head seeing Yoshino lying flat on her rooftop. He usually came around at night, and always lay there. How many times has he come here over the past months? She hadn't kept count. But she still listened to him. He was admittedly smart, and offered some usable advice on certain issues. Sighing tiredly, Kuratsuchi settled beside him, and then looked above. She didn't think he'd stab her in the back. Not when her most trusted knew she met him on occasions. If something happened to her, he would be blamed. The empire would take the fall. This is going to be my last visit, Yoshino suddenly said. Kuratsuchi twisted her neck to face him. It came out of nowhere. She was shocked. Baffled. The last time they had been talking smoothly without any issues between them, as long as the emperor didn't come up. Why? This has not been fruitful for me. We have not been able to move forward with our villages being on good terms or having an alliance, and you have only been using me. Kuratsuchi snorted. It isn't like you have not been using me. You first hinted that you'd work outside of the emperor, but it has become apparent that you cannot do anything against him. Yoshino smiled. Can you? I'm not the one who makes it appear as if he was willing to do whatever for power. I'm not the one who's been secretly hoping someone does something while I cannot do anything myself. It is also ironic that you are displeased at my inability when you suffer from the same issue. Kuratsuchi gritted her teeth. She wanted to shout and curse. But she held back. There was no point. She had stopped thinking about the emperor with Yoshino. The situation in her village was getting better. The daimyo was getting along with her. But she still didn't like the fact that Haku appeared to dine with him regularly and in private. What's going to happen? I actually lied when I hinted anything of betrayal to the emperor. My only interest was seeing you make proper decisions that won't see you destroyed. The path you were going on, His Majesty would have ordered his men to lay siege on Iwagakure. I did not want that. That is why I took over the diplomatic ties with you. She had known. Every time she sent a message to the Empire, Haku always told her to speak to Yoshino as he did not have the authority to discuss anything with her. The moves Yoshino influenced her to make had helped save her. But of course, she didn't owe him anything nor has she given him anything. It was his choice to do what he did. She could only thank him. But while I have succeeded in some areas, I have failed in some, Yoshino added. He was not going to add which area he failed or the fact that it was most crucial to him. But it didn't matter. He had worked hard on her, and he now knew how to press her buttons, what made her laugh, what made her angry. He was only unable to learn what she dreamed while sleeping. Kuratsuchi was not concerned over what the man has failed. She was most worried about the fact that if she lost him, she would lose her connection with the Empire. There was nothing as dominant in politics as the Empire right now. Most goods running into her village came via the trains as merchants turned to them as the cheaper and safest method of transportation. Even things that would not normally reach them were now reaching them as the method of transportation was now available for traders. Kuratsuchi had benefited in some of that because of Yoshino. The trains were not planned to get into her village because of her dispute with the emperor, but he had managed to do it. If she lost him, she would lose someone much closer to the emperor. She couldn't have it. Not when Haku, the other person, didn't seem interested in connecting with her. There was no other way to reach the emperor aside from the Haku or Yoshino. "What do you want?" Yoshino smiled, inwardly. This was not so bad. The following day, Hanabi stepped into a meeting room with an expressionless mask on her face. She was holding it in. She was due to meet the emperor alone, without her father or anyone else. Her father had not been receptive to the idea, but Haku had said the emperor did not have any ulterior motives and her father could do this if he trusted the emperor to be faithful in their talks. He'd only ended up agreeing to it after Haku said they would be talking at his tower on some other issues Konoha must have tried to have him bring out because the emperor was not going to entertain it. The room was empty. It was less imposing than the throne room. There was a small table in the center, a bottle and 2 saucers, with 2 cushions set aside. The door on the right was open, with a view to the garden. It was peaceful. Her tension eased a bit at the atmosphere, but she did not sit down. "You can sit down." Hanabi nearly jumped when the emperor suddenly spoke behind her. He'd frightened her. She'd not been expecting him. She had not even heard his footsteps or even sensed his presence. She already knew about this. His silence. If he wanted to kill her, he could have succeeded. Once more, Hanabi saw that amused look on his face. It was much different looking at it up close. But his eyes still looked tired. Hanabi dragged her feet to settle across him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Your Majesty," Hanabi said in a polite tone. "But I think my father would be the right person to talk to about such matters." Naruto did not face Hanabi. He had his reasons. He didn't want to deal with Hayashi, and he found it most interesting to deal with Hanabi. Still, recently, the people who came to see him were those who needed to be punished. He hardly saw anyone who had not done anything wrong. He had become the judge, sentencing people to death. He did not reward any. But Haku did so. Of course, all rewards were in his name. He poured the sake on both saucers and pushed one toward Hanabi before facing her. "Aren't you the future head of your clan? Hayashi is old, and you are going to take over him? Is that not so?" "There have been such talks, but my sister has also been proposed to take the role." "Clan politics. Hinata is going to end up being married, maybe outside. And she will leave the clan. I was in the same class as her years ago. She is not assertive enough to be a leader, but you are. Don't disappoint me." The emperor didn't hate her sister. From his expression, he appeared to be stating facts. Hanabi let loose of the breath she held in and responded. "I am the one to take over for my father, but I'm still not in a position to make decisions for the clan. Decisions have already been made. It is simply the finer details that need to be discussed," Naruto said with a shrug. "Sell your pitch to me, or to be more precise, refresh my mind." Konoha decided that instead of forcing things, a more diplomatic way should be sought out to make a connection between the Leaf and the Empire. Marriage arrangements have been used for generations to foster and to show close relationships between nations. The Hyuga clan has some interest in forming close ties with the Uzumaki clan. Naruto raised an eyebrow. What would those ties entail? The use of Fuinjutsu and forming a relationship that will last for generations. My father aims for the Hyuga clan to become the most influential clan in the Hidden Leaf. The clans were nobles and controlled some affairs of a village. In terms of politics, they also dominated. And they offered some military strength to the village in which they belong. Naruto smiled. He didn't have a problem with it. Interesting. But before we go on the Fuinjutsu part, I would like to talk to your cousin, Niji. That can be arranged, Hanabi said. Do you still agree that one of your children will marry a child from the Hyuga clan? It has to be your child, provided you marry into the Hyuga clan. As someone who is to be clan head, I cannot marry outside the clan. That shall be on the agreement nonetheless. I don't want surprises. The human heart is very strange. You could fall in love with someone and then decide to get pregnant with them. Hanabi was surprised that such words could come out of the emperor. She felt inclined to ask, "Does His Majesty believe in love?" Naruto smiled. "I have felt the emotion of love. And I have seen it do wonders to some of my subordinates. I heard you were close to Konohamaru, nothing there." Hanabi's expression changed slightly. "There will be nothing. I like how you phrased that. Someone is going to be very disappointed. We will make the agreement. You still want my child to grow up in Konoha?" Yes, he or she will have to reside in our clan to become used to his future. Naruto looked thoughtful for a moment before responding. He or she, would you be okay if I said, your child must grow up here without you? Hanabi tried to think of a diplomatic answer, but the emperor spoke once more before she could. My child will grow here, be educated here in both life and shinobi matters. However, I'm not against him going to the Leaf. The Hyuga child must also come here to know this country. You should also have a backup plan, in case something happens to either. We will do the same, Naruto said before his eyes narrowed. Tell me, did you people think of this to make my child a political hostage in case I ever decided to attack the Leaf? That was not the thought of the Hyuga clan. You gave your answer very quickly. But I will accept it. The clan has this tradition. Some of our clansmen are sent to work for the village while some work for the clan. The clan is willing to enter into an agreement that should the empire require our expertise, the clan shinobi will be able to provide it. It seems your father truly wants to grow his influence. But confidentiality issues? Not everything the clan does is for Konoha. My father's first priority has always been the clan, then the village. I should adhere to this principle. Excellent, Naruto said with a small smile. It is impolite to refuse a drink from the emperor. Hanabi stared the drink the emperor had shoved to her side. She didn't want to drink, but she had no choice, did she? At least it was just one drink. Haku worked at the tower and the compound, but he spent most time at the latter location. At least that is what intel suggested. It was possible for people to come here and still not see the emperor, even though he was around. It had been Konoha's struggle over the last several months. Kakashi had come here but had still not met the emperor. He'd spoken with Haku, but the man had said he had not been given the authority to have any formal talks with the Leaf. He however did entertain the man. Still, nothing much had come out of it aside from deals with the trains. The Leaf had considered holding the trains hostage to get the Empire to talk to them, but Shikamaru had suggested such an idea would be ill-informed and would only lead for the Empire to act against them. While a meeting had now been sorted, Hayashi was still concerned that nothing with Konoha was being worked out. The elders were not going to be pleased about it. He glanced at Haku for a moment before looking around the crowded office. Scrolls, stacks of papers. There had been people coming in and going moments earlier. There was truly a large volume of work. The empire was growing. Its political and economic muscles were growing. It was not flexing them, but it would soon enough. You seem to do much of the work around here. Hayashi started in a light tone. Not at all, His Majesty still does most of the heavy work. Besides, I work on authority of the Emperor, Haku said with a slight shrug. He isn't going to take much time with Hanabi-san, and after that, I will be called to speak to him. If you want to say something, you should say it now. Hayashi didn't need to think about it for long. Why doesn't he want to entertain a relationship with Konoha? Before the war and after, he seemed willing to the idea of forming closer ties with the Leaf. Only he can answer that question. A response from me would be mere speculation. Surely you have asked? Haku stared for a moment before responding. A possibility, but I'm not willing to discuss privileged conversations with the Emperor, he said. What was the message from Konoha? An alliance talk. Formal alliance talk, Hayashi said. Konoha is hosting Kage Summit soon, yes? Haku said in thought. I will persuade him to go to Konoha. Not for the summit, but to see you. You will host him. Whatever happens on that side is up to you. He'll notice something so bluntly clear. Doesn't matter, Haku said with a slight shrug of his shoulders. He slouched to his chair and held his hands together. There is also a request we would like from your clan. We would like to utilize your shinobi for an S-rank mission. What mission? Classified, Haku said. At least for now. You'll get the details from Guren at a suitable time. Hayashi was not going to complain about this kind of arrangement, but no doubt, Konoha was going to cry. This did not benefit the Leaf, not even a little. This was going to do well for the Hyuga clan. If Konoha thought that tying the clan with the Empire would benefit Konoha greatly, they were massively mistaken. Still, if the Hyuga clan benefited, Konoha would also benefit. Regardless of what happens, the Hyuga clan would always be loyal to Konoha. If the Empire could not see that, then the relationship would end. He didn't think that these people didn't know that. No, they had to know that. They were not even asking him of anything that would leave the clan at odds with Konoha. It was all above board. It was late at night when Haku walked into Naruto's office. These days, Naori and Naoki worked shifts because Naruto could go around without sleeping for longer periods. Sometimes he could just sit on the throne in the throne room without any company. It was worrying and a little sad at times. He wondered what the man really wanted. Was there something that he was missing? Was he simply not satisfied that things have come this far? Did he want more, or was he just not happy with all things in general? Haku had tried asking before, but he had been shut down. It was not that Naruto wore a sad face. The Emperor was still unreadable, but there was certainly something different about him. When Haku stepped into the office, the blonde was working on a stack of papers. He was still the Emperor. There were many things that he needed to go through. Reports that ended up in his desk had to be read and then stored away in a secure facility bound by barriers. Haku sat in front of Naruto's desk. The office was just like the one in the whirlpools. Nothing had changed, just the amount of work. "You're making a habit of working late nights," Haku said in calm tone, eyes fully on the Emperor. Naruto didn't immediately respond. His eyes remained focused on what he was reading before glancing up at Haku for a moment. "There is nothing better to do at night." Haku almost laughed, but he held back. "Nothing better to do at night. You have wives." He emphasized the last word. Naruto's lips twirled slightly into a smile. "And you think I should be bedding one of them at night? So today I decide where I go. Do I get the comfort of the delightful Mizukage? Do I go to Temari and feel her warm heart and listen to the troubles of her life and try to comfort her? Do I go to whirlpools and hear Karen complain about being pregnant and the hardships she has to go through while I dare to dream about being a father and what kind of a father I would become? Do I go to Land of Springs and forget about all shinobi matters? Do I go to Nadeshiko?" Some men would be envious to have such a list of women. Some people couldn't even get one without having to pay. There was a brothel in this city, and he had seen many men go through for pleasure. The man who operated it had begged him to open it after he had first rejected the idea. He'd found it a little distasteful, but he had been convinced that some people made it their work. He only agreed to it if all of them women were not forced and worked there voluntarily. Yugao was always going there to check if everything was running according to the law. Naruto didn't have to spend a cent. He had wives. Yet, these days, being alone seemed to be his beloved bedtime. Some people would be envious to have such options. "I know one," Naruto said with a small smile. Jiraiya would certainly say he was living the afterlife if such a thing was a reality for him. Those days with the Sannin had truly been wonderful. He'd been a little less worried. He could enjoy things without being worried about anything. He could go anywhere and allow the temptations to rule over him. Then, Naruto fell back into his chair and closed his eyes for a moment. "I feel rather empty. I have everything, but my heart feels a little empty. There is something that seems missing." Haku raised an eyebrow at this contradiction. "How do you have everything and still lack something?" Naruto shrugged. "It cannot be explained. Or perhaps I do not want to bother myself explaining it. Everything is in order. My empire is growing. I can look forward to being a father. Temari is going to come here to live with me for a couple of months. I should be happy. Isn't that the problem?" "What? You've never lived your life to be happy. It was always about the goals of the empire. But now we are at a stage where you must sit back and just watch other people work. You don't have to bother thinking about things because we do it for you. That is a little troubling. I'm not used to this," Naruto said in a flat tone. "I'm considering going on a trip, just to refresh my mind. The last trip I went on was perhaps the happiest part in my life. I would think it is seeing the Uzumaki clan rise, but it is not. Seeing the clan grow only fills me with pride. I was also not aware Temari was coming. Are you gonna go with her?" "I think so," Naruto said in thought. "What do you think of the idea?" "I don't disagree with it. I can handle things in your absence, and if there is anything that needs to be sorted out, Yoshino and Gyurin can always sort it out. If you can take your imperial train around the elemental nations, it could give you some needed rest and gives you a chance to see how the world has changed. At the same time, we can make new friends. While you won't be doing any official visits, I have no doubt that you will be engaged by leaders of all nations you will pass," Haku said in thought. "But I'll need to make preparations." "Make them," Naruto said. He then released a long breath before speaking once more. "I guess I can go surprise Mei." Kirigakure. Mei's eyes snapped open when she sensed a presence closer to her. She nearly jumped when she saw someone lying beside her on her bed, but calmed when she saw it was Naruto. He was lying on his side, staring at her with a small smile on his lips. She could still not tell what he was thinking. These days, his presence has been a little scarce. He even looked tired. Then again, even without wars and battles, there was another fight with paperwork that he had to engage. The empire was growing, surely, time would also be limited. It didn't matter if there were other people assisting, he was still the emperor. The Mizukage cleared those thoughts. She was merely happy to see him here. To see him before her with a smile. She sometimes missed that small smile. She felt like she didn't need to move, but just stare at him silently without saying another word. Maybe for a couple minutes or an hour. Even if she fell asleep, it would not become a problem for her. The relationship was not all about touching. Emotional support was also needed. A little surprised to see you, but I'm happy. I've realized I've been neglecting you, Naruto said. It was simply not the duties he had to complete but his desire for some alone time. His voice was quiet and there was a bit of emotion. Things could truly change. Mei smiled. Are you okay though? Such a strange question. The only other person who asked him the question so earnestly was Haku. The others didn't say anything. Not even Karen dared asking him about his mental health. He'd always held up. He'd always been fine. His mind had been set up to think in a different way. But he wanted to avoid that because it would not lead to happiness. I think I am. Mei raised an eyebrow. That is new. Naruto smiled. Perhaps, he said. There is just a dilemma that I must confront. With things moving in the right direction, there is little less of that rational thinking. I also think about what kind of parent I want to become. At the same time, I cannot afford to fail in my duty as emperor by allowing emotions to get the best of me. It is a question of whether I stick to my guns or make a little adjustment. But the adjustment will be very difficult because my mind is used to setting up things in a certain way. Perhaps I may never even get rid of the way I think, but I can still show a little bit of love, if I have any to give. Everyone had challenges to face. Mei would like it if Naruto showed a little more love. It would make things easy, it would make things happier. Happiness to the heart was not brought by rational thinking, emotions brought out happiness. Nothing would make me happier than seeing you smile more, Mei said with a warm smile. Of course, there are still things one cannot expect from you. But for a happy family, a child must not grow to despise you, you need to show love. Not unless you want to brainwash them. Naruto chuckled lightly. I would think of doing something like that. Everyone has the freedom to choose what they want. It is simply learning that your freedom does not mean you must crush others and infringe on other people's principles and ideals. In my empire, your freedom must not be what takes you to an opposing view that leads you to attempt to usurp me. I want the children to be happy and live their lives freely, but they must still know what is expected of them. I also know that if you neglect your children, they will resent you and the likelihood of them following your footsteps become none. So, the logical choice is to do what makes them admire you. Naturally, you cannot please all people. But that is just part of life. Mei smiled. I hope you make the decision that does not leave you miserable. You cannot sacrifice everything. I think you have already done enough. You should take a slight step back, but don't ever stop being vigilant. I ceased being emperor the day I become ignorant. The air was fresh, but the noise was loud. It was not like Konoha or Uzushiogakure. This was different from any other village. Then again, every nation was unique. But this city of Naruto was crowded by people from different nations. Temari had read some reports of people wanting to come to visit this place for the good life. The capital was not just the home of the most powerful man in the shinobi world, it was also the most technologically advanced nation. There were things to do that you could only find in the city. But from what she had heard, life was also very expensive here. Rich people tended to overprice things. But with orphanages run by the empire and business coming in every day, the city's residents didn't have to worry about the capital. This place was overflowing with opportunities and most of all, the good and peaceful life was guaranteed by the emperor. Temari had not set foot in Uzushiogakure ever since the fight with Madara ended. She'd gone to the wave a couple of times. People called the wave the second capital. The economy in the wave was still strong and the fact that it is in the coast meant that all shipping into the empire went through it. The whirlpools had become closed once more. Getting into the wave was even difficult these days with border control. From what she had heard, it was only people from the wave who get a free pass into the whirlpools. The blonde shook her head. Her eyes wandered about the streets. She was with no one. The city was huge. But she didn't have to worry about getting lost. This was not her first time here. Children were playing in the streets. So careless and happy. Their smiles made her smile. Naruto built this. He made this into reality. The same blonde who walked into Suna for training was the one who built this. The same man she called husband. Her smile quickly disappeared when a certain Uzumaki flashed behind her. I was comfortable alone, Temari said with narrowed eyes. Naoki smiled, walking behind the blonde. I noticed. Then? You are not very nice to me, Temari-san. Naoki more or less complained. I don't think I've offended you in any way. Had he? Temari shook her head. What is it, Naoki? Naoki sighed. Well, since my presence isn't wanted, I'll depart without giving you the message, and you won't find His Majesty at home. Temari frowned. He knew she was coming in today. The exact time had not been arranged because she had not said which train she would take. Haku? Locked in a meeting with delegates from the Earth and Cloud. It was delegates from the feudal lords, no doubt. It was a thing that this empire did so often. When Haku had begun being open with his flirtation with the feudal lords, some villages had been worried. The Kage had been concerned about the empire's motives. It had been especially concerning. It was the time when the empire was avoiding the Kage. The alliances with the daimyo made the emperor even more powerful, politically. They listened to him. And they all seemed to have better relations with Haku than with Kage of their nations. Perhaps they were only laughing all the way to their beds due to the taxes the empire paid them. The train business was making money. Lots of it. And the empire controlled the whole system in the shinobi world. Goods now traveled by train. Aid arrived faster. The empire affected the lives of all people in the shinobi world. And that was a dangerous power. And Naruto? His Majesty, Naoki stressed the rank, is out getting some fresh air. But I can take you to him. Temari narrowed her eyes. She knew she was not the Empress. Karen was. She did not have the same status as the Uzumaki. But from what she knew, Karen had no role whatsoever, and she had little power. It was apparently stripped from her. It had nothing to do with her pregnancy. Thinking of this, she rubbed her belly and then responded. No, it's fine. I'll wait for him. The view was quite verdant below. Standing above the hill, one could see the vast green land of farms. Some of it was still just not yet green. There were many people moving around, preparing the land, making it fertile. The conditions favored agriculture. The emperor was even using mokutan to make it worthwhile. Water was available. The land was there for the taking. This was not the hot, breathless conditions of the wind that suffocated even creatures meant for the desert. Yoshino couldn't help but smile. Everything was moving according to plan. Harvest season would come and the empire would be shipping large chunks of food. Merchants would be trading, taking advantage of the fair prices negotiated, an easier method of transportation that didn't come with the extra costs of hiring security. Smells fresh here, Karen said, standing beside Yoshino. The emperor was in a meditative position, sitting just in front of them. It's the smell of nature, Yoshino said. He had come here needing to take on business with the emperor, but Karen had insisted on coming along. She said she wanted to go out despite the fact that she was not allowed to leave the palace. Naruto probably didn't want people to know about her pregnancy. The shinobi world was in the dark over it, except for a few. He took 2 steps closer to the emperor, and then started speaking. Haika! Yoshino. Naruto didn't open his eyes. I have managed things with Kuratsuchi. Haku can begin with negotiations. She believes that she now needs me. Though I have not been successful in completely changing her, the exercise was not utterly pointless. Naruto was silent for a moment. He glanced back at Yoshino, but his eyelids remained shut. It falls short of what I requested. Yoshino was not going to deny that. But at this point, there was no reason to kill the woman, not unless they wanted to control Iwa from the shadows. But such an action now would only destabilize things. Besides, the emperor was going to be bored with no challenges. It was best to keep her around. As long as he managed to keep an eye on her, and made sure she didn't come up with any surprises. Perhaps, but... There are no buts. Naruto cut off Yoshino. Haku will not deal with Kuratsuchi, you will deal with her. If anything happens, you are responsible for it. And access to the empire? What if she requests an audience with you? Unless she wants to bow before me, we won't have anything to discuss. Yoshino nodded. Well, he was not going to complain. In fact, this was a challenge. A good situation that would see him dictate things. He could move his play in the stone. If he played his cards right, he may even end up having a say on who succeeds Kuratsuchi. But that would not be for now. Naruto now had no interest in the Kage. He was dealing with the feudal lords. In times of peace, they reigned supreme. But during wars, they were useless political hacks who could only object about this, and that while selfishly crying for their safety. Amigake, that does have a pleasant ring to it, do you not think, Your Majesty? Ame continues to be the focus of our military strength, and continued growth can only lead for Nagato to be called a Kage. We are already a great nation that rivals the Great Five. You are not a Kage, you are more than that. The Kage dictate war, Nagato wants everlasting peace. He can play with the Kage to make his peace. Naruto opened his left eye for a second before responding. The feudal lords will soon recognize the empire as the sixth great nation. I will dine with the feudal lords. And it will only become an inevitability that we too get a kage. What kind of a great nation doesn't have a kage? Shinobi villages work on their own. You can leave Nagato to do as he pleases. If it leads to war? Then so be it. Humans can never truly get along with everything. There will always be conflicts. But it will be how we handle it. We are at the center of the great nations. If there is gonna be a war, we would have to be proactive to protect ourselves. There will be no war, just death. Yoshino shook his head. He should have expected Naruto to give that response. I will speak to Nagato. And this means you won't have to deal with the kage. I prefer it. If that is what His Majesty demands, then it shall be so, Yoshino said with a small bow. And that little problem? Have Noroi send Sasuke to deal with it. They are originally after Uchiha anyway, Naruto said. It shall be done, Yoshino said before turning to face Karen. I'm done. Naoki will send you back home. I have some other things to do before returning. Karen hesitated for a moment before stepping closer to Naruto. She then sat on his right side and stared down before glancing at him through the corner of her eyes. She smiled nervously. I know, but I wanted to go out and we need to start talking about a name. I have thought of a few, she said with excitement. It was not difficult to miss the excitement in Karen's tone. The months were moving. Soon, the cycle would end and she would give him his first child. Or as Naoki says it, the first official child. But Naruto knew he had no other child. The one Karen held inside of her was his first. This was what was going to make him a father. Whether he would become the best father or a miserable tyrant who courts the contempt of his firstborn was a debate he had inside. Do you think I will become a good father, Karen? Naruto asked. What makes you think you won't? I know my mind is not suited for dealing with children. The young ones sometimes speak irrational things, but I don't tolerate that. As much as I want my first child to be strong enough to succeed me, I also want him to know the love of a father. I want him to be happy with life. I was miserable. There is hatred inside of me. I don't want a child of mine to have these feelings. Karen just smiled. If that is what you desire, you will make it happen. You have always been able to play any role you want. Kanehigakure. Kakashi sighed, looking at the report from Hayashi. Nothing was going according to plan. Things were moving dangerously far away from them. It did seem that Naruto only played nice with them for a short while to form those agreements that they had formed. He was not breaking any of the agreements. But his presence in the Kage meetings had always been conditional on an invite. The past meetings, the Emperor was always not available. They could not complain because not even the people in the sound saw him nor the daimyo his empire appeared to be courting. The sixth Hokage glanced at Shikamaru for a moment, and then asked, What do you think? I think the Emperor has achieved what he has set out to achieve and cemented himself as the strongest, that he now no longer needs the Kage. He isn't simply ignoring you, it is most likely that he feels he doesn't need to sit down with you, the Nara said in a tired tone. Whatever had to do with Naruto was always challenging. The Emperor was a shrewd person. He was manipulatively good, and Shikamaru feared to think that the world was moving in the palm of his hands. Certainly, everything now moved past him and he stood at the center of all great five nations. But it seems this issue is, well, he is forced with the other nations. Kiri, the Mizukage, is his wife. She is not stupid and would not have moved ahead without benefiting her village. You saw how she handled things with them while Uzushio was still on lockdown. With Suna, it is more or less the same issue. While he has not been dealing with Gaara in person, the Wind Daimyo's deals with the Empire appear aimed at Suna. It is most likely that the Wind Lord wants to have Suna grow enough to challenge the other great nations rather than it being the smallest, and always having to depend on others. It was not to say the Empire was very close to Suna. No, it was not like that. The Empire apparently had close ties with all great nations, just not the great villages. But I am not surprised about Iwa. You know how that Setsukage talks about the Emperor. Who would want to associate themselves with someone who openly talks about their contempt for you? No one. Kakashi thought mildly. When the Emperor comes to this place, you'll talk to him. That is if he permits it. He will, Kakashi said confidently. We will get a letter from the Fire Lord about this. We have also had to remind the daimyo that his country is called the strongest because of Kanehigakure. If anything were to happen to this village that makes it lose its spot, he would no longer be the most powerful daimyo. Of course, this was also done to see if the Empire has something on him. And does he? Kakashi shrugged. I don't know, but he has apparently offered us word that he will cooperate. Sound capital. Temari felt a little giddy to be in this kind of situation. She was even nervous. She never thought that she would ever be in such a situation, with all eyes on her. She was standing by the train station. Everything had come to a standstill, all trains had stopped moving and everyone was out in the open, standing next to the Imperial train. It was for the first time in months that the general public was seeing the Emperor. He was majestically dressed, his crown firmly on his head, hands folded behind his back, and he wore a gallant smile on his lips. They were bidding him a safe journey, for his travels across the shinobi world. Temari felt like she could disappear into the train, just to avoid the eyes that looked at her strangely. It was not just civilians, but the leadership of the Empire that stood there. It was a nerve-wracking moment. She had grown up being the daughter of a kage, and now her brother was a kage, but this atmosphere was different. The man standing beside her had a different stature compared to her brother and her father. This was the Emperor, the strongest shinobi alive, or as many claimed. Haku stepped forward smiling widely. Take care of him, and don't let him get sidetracked by getting absorbed in work. He must enjoy his holiday. This was not the kind of decision that had taken a long time planning. It was like a whimsical thing that was decided on the spot. Temari had been surprised. It was not the kind of thing that Naruto did, but it was not such a bad thing. Work had been stressing her. It might look like there was some peace, but work still had to be done. She was exhausting her mind a bit too often. You're going to send him work? She asked. Well, of course. He is the Emperor, he must still approve certain things and sign off documents to make things official. I thought you could sign off such things, given your role. Haku just smiled and did not address the question. He turned to Naruto. Try to enjoy yourself, Your Majesty. The Empire will be still standing when you return. Don't encourage him like that. Naoki was quick to say as he stepped up. When he gets a little too happy, Temari-san will get neglected while he goes rampant around bars and gambling areas to amuse himself and sit around in the darkest corner. I wouldn't do that while she is wide awake. I'd wait for her to sleep and then go out. Naruto responded with nonchalance. Naoki laughed. I can see you do that. Temari glared. I'm still right here. She knew about that side of Naruto. He had done so while he was at Suna during the time he came to continue with his training. If you find him gone when you wake up, use your fan, Haku suggested with a smile. As long as you send the bill for the destruction to Suna. He shared a laugh with Naoki, while Naruto just put on an amused look. She shouldn't be taking her fan with her. We are not going to battle, and if there is any trouble, I trust Naoki and Naori will be around in a flash to handle matters, Naruto said, glancing at Temari from the corner of his eyes. You're not taking my fan from me, Temari responded in a hardened tone, and then turned to the train. She stepped in without saying another word. Naruto just shook his head. Haku held out his hand. Take care, Naruto. And don't worry too much about things here. We will be fine. If anything goes wrong, you know Naoki will be the first to tell you since he likes reporting matters that don't concern him. Naruto took the hand and shook it. He waved at the crowd behind and then turned away. Before stepping into the train, he spoke. I should hope to celebrate your union when I return. It should be a great day for the Empire that will be made a holiday to honor you and your great service, while cementing your place in our history. It shall also be a day that welcomes the first stage of restoration of the Yuki clan. Other than that, take care of my empire.